Hey there, this is Natalie, and it's time for another look at one of CBR's quality articles about ReZero. It's a while since I've done one of these, but I've got a gem for you today, and this one luckily doesn't contain any spoilers for beyond where we are with the anime right now, so it's something you can enjoy hating just as much as I do, whether you're a web novel or an anime-only ReZero fan. Now, this article, speaking of things you can enjoy hating, is about Garfiel Tensal and 9 more characters fans love to hate. This is the top 10 characters that CBR.com believe ReZero fans love to hate. And the thing about this article is, I've asked so many people to guess who CBR think is the number 1 character fans love to hate, and nobody has even come close. Because their choice of the number 1 character is so bizarre. You know, you would think maybe they have some weird hot take and they're going to go for Emilia, or maybe they're going to be super basic and go for like one of the Sin Archbishops or something like that. But no, the character that they've chosen as number 1 is a really, really weird choice, and we'll get to that towards the end of the video. But to start with, Garfiel Tensal. This has been spelled differently in a few translations I've seen, but usually it's down to whether or not it's Tinsel, Tinzel, or Tinsel, Tinsel. It's never Tensal. Never. And so they're off to a good start, as always. So, this article came out towards the end of the first core of Season 2, and it says ReZero's second season introduced some new characters and brought back returning ones that fans only love to hate. With ReZero finishing up the first half of its second season soon, fans have had a lot of time to think about the series. While Rem may not be an active character at the moment, a handful of new characters have been introduced, and the rest of the cast has been expanded upon. This has led many fans to develop even stronger feelings for the returning characters and newcomers alike, though not all of those feelings are positive. While those like Crush have become even more loved, others like Roswaal have only gained a lot of negative attention. Even with the distraction of the popular witch Echidna appearing brings to the series, fans can't help but hate some of the current cast members. Okay, well that's, pretty bland, but nothing really contentious about that introduction. I would say the popular witch Echidna would be a character I would normally expect to see on a list of divisive characters some people are at least, suspicious of, or, think might be a bad character, like an enemy character. Not a badly written character, she's great, but, do we all universally think Echidna is a good person, a nice character? Well, no, but she's not going to be on the list. So what we start with is number 10, Garfiel Tensal. Garfiel is one of the most polarising characters introduced in ReZero's second season. Garfiel watches over the sanctuary and causes a massive amount of trouble for Subaru, who just wants to complete the trials so everyone can go home. Garfiel has attacked Subaru on many occasions, killed Otto, and even been shown to have one of the anime's worst tempers. So that's apparently worse. Having one of the anime's worst tempers is worse than killing Otto and attacking Subaru. But, yeah, many fans are having a hard time finding something to like about Garfiel, as he seems to be made of pure anger, though they do enjoy making Garfield-related jokes about Garfiel and his cat-like appearance. So yeah, there's nothing to like about Garfiel, except for all those high-quality memes about lasagna and not liking Mondays that we all find hilarious. That's clearly the only good thing about him. That's the reason why he's one of the most popular characters in the ReZero fandom. It's not because, in the first part of season 2 we're supposed to not really understand him and not really like him very much because of the things he does, only for him to be revealed later on to be something a little bit different. It's nothing like that. It's just that, he turns into an orange stripy tiger and he's called Garfield, so, John jokes. It's really good, honestly. Garfiel Tensal. Priscilla Barriel doesn't appear in season 2. In fact, I don't think she's even mentioned. I don't think her name is even mentioned in season 2 of ReZero, but here she is at number 9. Priscilla is the most disliked royal candidate according to fans. Even though she hasn't had a ton of screen time, from what viewers do know about Priscilla, they just don't like her. Priscilla is incredibly stuck up, has no interest in helping others, and is really spoiled. Yeah, that seems to be pretty much the impression we're supposed to have of Priscilla from season 1. Despite her young age, she's even been divorced several times and doesn't seem to have any remorse about it. Are you supposed to have remorse about being divorced? But, in fact, they're wrong here. Priscilla hasn't been divorced. Her husbands all died. And that does seem like something someone might need to have some remorse about, if she killed them. And I think we're kind of led to suspect that might be what happened. But the thing with Priscilla is she genuinely does have this extremely high luck. Her high luck is almost considered a superpower or an ability within the setting. So I guess luck in ReZero kind of works like it does in an RPG or something where, you either have high luck or you don't. And Priscilla's is exceptionally high. I think it's entirely possible that what happened with all of Priscilla's husbands is where she was a member of the Valachian royal family. It's likely she was probably involved in some political marriages, kind of arranged marriages, and it's possible those people that she was married to weren't very nice. And maybe as a result of Priscilla's extremely high luck and the fact that the world actually does seem to take care of her, the husbands that were mean to her maybe met a nasty end without Priscilla actually killing them herself. This is, of course, all conjecture and not something you would get really from just watching the first season. I'm not disputing that Priscilla is a character that people love to hate. I'm just saying that there could be a lot more to her than we've been shown, and kind of the intention seems to have been, at least up until arc 5, that we think she, doesn't care about other people, isn't interested in saving anybody, and she does threaten to kill people quite often. But I think Priscilla is maybe intended to be someone who makes herself out to be a worse person than she actually is. I really like Priscilla. She's one of my favourite characters. I'm really looking forward to arc 7 where we're going to get to see a lot more of her. I think she's going to turn out to be rather different from what we saw in season 1. But I can't really dispute her being on this list. She is a character that people do love to hate, and that seems to, the way she's been presented at first, it seems that that's kind of the intention. She's supposed to come across as that kind of bitchy character, maybe like Mine from Shield Hero, somebody like that, very spoiled and bitchy. But it's the way this is written. It's like Priscilla believes that the world bends to her will, which isn't even close to true. And the thing is, you sound like you're just talking about some mean girl from your office or something, rather than a character who we don't know to what extent the world really does bend to Priscilla's will, just what her luck and her divine protection and all of that work like. But when you say it isn't even close to true, the thing is, it's possible that it is true. It's possible that Priscilla is that favoured by the world. We see characters who are very favoured by the world, like Reinhard, with all of his divine protections. And it's quite possible that Priscilla's luck is something similar to that, something supernatural that does actually mean that things do tend to always work out okay for Priscilla. The way that this could work is kind of interesting because it wouldn't necessarily impede on other people's free will. People can still try to target Priscilla. They can still decide to try to assassinate Priscilla. Things like that have happened in her backstory. But with her luck, these things will always kind of work out for Priscilla. Everything will end up being okay for her in the end. And the people who target her perhaps will meet nasty consequences, whether that's down to her being able to beat them in a fight because she is extremely strong as well, or whether that's just down to them falling into some bad luck of their own. Well, we'll probably find out more about that as the series goes on. It's just like this line here: Priscilla believes that the world bends to her will, which isn't even close to true. Yeah, she's not the girl at high school that was mean to you. She's a fantasy character, you know. She could very well have the world on her side. And then we get to a character that, you know, it's pretty obvious you're going to put Petelgeuse Romani-Conti up in here because he's one of the very clear antagonists that we had in season 1. We will find out more about him later on in the anime, but if we're anime only, you know, all we know about Petelgeuse is that he's basically indefensible. He's insane, and, you know, he did a lot of bad things to Subaru and to Rem. Or, if you believe CBR, to Ram. While Petelgeuse is an interesting villain, fans still hate him for the horrible things he did to Ram. Now, he did kill Ram, but it was kind of off screen. I don't really think we all think back and go, oh yeah, the worst thing he did, that was what he did to Ram. That was terrible. Obviously, they're talking about Rem. And I can see that, you know, one time getting the letters mixed up and saying Ram when you mean Rem could just be a typo. But no, next sentence. After Petelgeuse captures Subaru, Ram comes to the rescue and is then tortured by Petelgeuse, who takes joy in twisting around her body. CBR always do this. They always talk about things that happen to Rem and say Ram instead. It's like, is there some kind of weird Mandela effect where whoever writes this crappy content for CBR is from like an alternate timeline where they watched a different version of ReZero where pink Rem was Rem? I don't know. It's just like the smallest mistake that you can make, that you can just check that you're not talking about the wrong one of the two characters with very similar names who are twins. You know, if you're writing about an anime where you don't really know what you're talking about, I would have thought that would be the first thing you'd check you were getting right, because it would be so easy to get wrong if you didn't know what you were talking about. But no, CBR always think they're talking about Ram when they're talking about Rem. There's a whole article on this website that I will talk about another time that is like, who's the best girl out of Echidna and Rem? And half of the points about Rem, they're actually talking about Ram. It's like they can't handle there being two characters with similar names. It's just too much for them. Anyway, moving on. Petelgeuse also sought to use Emilia's body as a vessel to bring back Satella, which was a plan that he seemed to have invented all on his own. While he was pretty easy to kill, was he? He's a spirit and he can put himself into all different people, and he had all of those fingers that he could stay alive by taking over. And then he could take over Subaru himself. So, you know, in the end, then he managed to survive even everything they did to him, and was kind of chasing after the carriage as Subaru was trying to get away. And Subaru was only able to kill him because Julius had like lent him one of his little spirits. And yeah, it wasn't that easy. I don't know. Maybe the person who wrote this thinks they could have done a better job. You know, it's just Petelgeuse. What's he going to do? The small amount of time he appeared in ReZero was more than enough for fans to hate him. I mean, was it a small amount of time in comparison to what? I mean, the whole of season 1 was 3 arcs, and the arc that Petelgeuse was actually in, he was in it quite a lot. I mean, if we were really going to talk about characters who had a small amount of screen time in the anime so far, here we go, number 7, Regulus Corneas. Regulus is one of the archbishops responsible for Rem falling into a coma and being forgotten by those around her. While the anime hasn't shown much of him just yet, fans of the light novels know all too well how cruel he can be. Yeah, but fans of the light novels know a lot more about all of these other characters too, you know. Fans of the light novels don't tend to hate Garfiel, for example, because, you know, he appears in a way that makes you not like him at the start, but then you do start to like him later. So, you know, fans of the light novels don't tend to hate Garfiel. Fans of the light novels do tend to hate Regulus because he has appeared more and he is an antagonist. But if you're going to use that argument, then half the characters you talk about in this list are not ones people hate. But, you know, CBR. They needed to fill their roster of characters fans love to hate. And Regulus was in the anime, I suppose, for a few seconds. So, you know, there he is. Any character that threatens Rem automatically gets a bad rap from the ReZero fanbase, but Regulus has done everything he can to remove her from the world permanently. Well, not really, because it was Ley Batenkaitos that ate Rem's memories and her name, which is what removed her from people's memories and put her into a coma. Regulus was there with Ley, but Regulus was just slaughtering people. Regulus, if he wanted to remove Rem from the world permanently, could very easily have just killed her. So he wasn't doing everything he can to remove her from the world permanently. He was not killing her, so he was doing none of what he could have done to remove her from the world. I don't know. He's there anyway, we hate him, whatever. Let's move on. Regulus is one of Satella the Witch of Envy's most devout followers in the anime, which certainly does little to help his case. Well, is he though? I mean, Satella and the Witch of Envy, this was cut from the anime, but it should already have been established in the anime that Satella and the Witch of Envy are different personalities. And the witch cult seem to be followers of the Witch of Envy, the one who caused the Great Calamity 400 years ago. However, as we find out more about the Sin Archbishops, it seems that not all of them are aligned with what Petelgeuse had going on in the first season of being all about reviving the witch and being all about using Emilia to do that. As they said, that seemed like Petelgeuse's own plan. Petelgeuse goes on about how much he loves the witch constantly. The others, not so much. They barely talk about her at all. And so, while he is a Sin Archbishop, which would make him one of the most devout followers, in name at least, he's not really, you know, that's not really part of his shtick. He's the Archbishop of Greed. He's got his own stuff going on. He's not really all about the witch in the same way that Petelgeuse is. And, you know, that's something that you wouldn't get from the few seconds of screen time that he has in season 2. You would get if you were a light novel reader. So, you know, CBR doing their best, I guess. At number 6, Ley Batenkaitos, or Ley Batenkaitos. This isn't them being weird with the name. It sometimes is Ley. I believe in the anime, the official translation they went with was Ley. I think that's also the case in the light novels. I'm a web novel reader, and quite often the translators there spelled it Ley, L-E-Y, and so I tend to pronounce it that way, but that might just be me being wrong rather than CBR. Ley is the representative of gluttony and takes it upon himself to attack Rem at the beginning of the second season. Ley, along with the help of Regulus, makes it so everyone but Subaru forgets Rem, while also erasing Crush's memories. Well, he didn't really need Regulus's help for that, and his intention when attacking those dragon carriages wasn't to find Rem and eat Rem's name or her memories. Rem stood up to him while they were attacking the carriages. She gave her little talk about Subaru, and that's actually what made Ley interested in both Rem and in Subaru in the first place. Ley thrives off of eating memories and names of other people to make himself try to feel fulfilled. While Ley also isn't a huge part of the second season, he's still the catalyst for all of Subaru's struggles and suffering in the current storyline. Because of this, fans can't help but hate him. Well, I mean, it's kind of wrong. I mean, yes, people definitely hate him. He's one of the big antagonists, he ate Rem, but it's enough to just say we hate him because he's a Sin Archbishop who ate Rem. You don't really need to say he's the catalyst for all of Subaru's struggles and suffering in the current storyline, because he isn't. He's the catalyst for the Rem aspect of the storyline, but it could be argued that other characters like Roswaal, perhaps, like the Witch of Envy, are the ones behind most of the struggles that Subaru encounters in the current, arc's plotline. Subaru is long-term trying to save Rem, but that's not really what Arc 4 is all about. But, he's the catalyst for all Subaru's struggles and suffering, so if CBR says he is, Next we have Roswaal. Roswaal, definitely a character that, based on the stuff in Arc 4, people do love to hate. Roswaal is a character who a lot of people guessed would be number 1 on this list when I asked them, but he's not, he's number 5. In a word, Roswaal is perfectly described as shady. I've definitely described him as shady in plenty of my videos, so I can't argue with that. He's definitely sus. Not helping matters is the fact that he's been disliked ever since ReZero began. Well, he wasn't in it until the second arc, but yeah, okay. Roswaal makes it very apparent in the second season that he's only out to serve himself and what he deems as important. Because of this, he causes tons of trouble for those around him. It was recently shown that Roswaal has little to no remorse when his allies die, and he sees everything that happens, deadly and otherwise, as another step made to getting closer to his goal. Yeah, I mean, this is all pretty much true. I would say that when you see him not caring about Ram and Garfield dying, that was because he already knows that Subaru can in some way redo things. I think he thinks it's a kind of time travel thing that he decides to do, rather than knowing that he actually returns by dying, because if he knew that, Roswaal would be killing Subaru all the time. But he is aware that deaths of characters may not be permanent. And so when we do see him, when he kills Ram and Garfield himself, he's doing that to sort of test Subaru and try and make Subaru decide that that's the moment he's going to use his time travel powers and go back in time. It's not that he believes he's permanently killing Garfield and Ram. He does have no remorse about doing things like ordering the attack on the mansion, however, so it does seem that he's more than happy to have some collateral damage in terms of people you would expect him to care about, like Frederica. You would expect him to care about them, but he's kind of fine with them dying because he only has one goal and he's working according to his gospel. So yeah, I mean, the gist of what they're saying about Roswaal is pretty much true. Can't really complain too much about this, but we'll move on. Elsa, number 4. Elsa is the very first obstacle that Subaru must learn to overcome in the story. Technically it's the thugs in the alley, but yeah, okay, Elsa's the first serious antagonist in ReZero. She's known across the land due to her signature method of killing her opponents by disemboweling them in gruesome ways. During the first season, she escaped being killed, and she's now terrorizing Subaru during the Sanctuary arc. Most fans just want to see Else, killed, and there's very little love for this character thanks to her violently gory nature. Well, yeah, I mean, she's an assassin, she kills people, she's the bowel hunter. You're not supposed to be like, this is Angel of this show, she's gonna be just so good for the world. But I would say that a lot of people do enjoy her presence on screen, so yeah, she's a character people love to hate. That's perfectly reasonable. I would have expected to see her higher on the list, in fact. But no. Next we've got Emilia. they had to put this one in, didn't they? They had to kind of pander to the, oh, we hate Emilia people from season 1. But, you know, she was going to be on the list. Again, I thought she'd be higher because that's the kind of thing CBR go for, isn't it? The controversial, like, oh, yeah, some people don't like Emilia. And clearly from some of the stuff they've said about Rem earlier on, like, you know, anyone who threatens Rem, people will not like them. I think this is being written from the perspective of someone whose view of the ReZero fandom is based on, you know, things from 2016 where people would be like losing their shit about Subaru preferring Emilia to Rem and all that kind of stuff. It's somebody who kind of has an impression of what people think about ReZero and has then looked on the wiki for some stuff. I really always get the impression with CBR that they're kind of just hiring someone to make up some stuff about something popular so they can stick it up there and get some traffic to their website. This is not content written by fans. This is not content written by people who have something interesting to say about the series that they're talking about. This is like freelancers who've been paid $10 to knock up a badly written article about something they've put a few minutes of research into. And that's why I always think it's fine to kind of roast CBR articles, because it's not the same as making fun of something that somebody's written as a review because that's their opinion, you know, they want to share it with the world. If their opinion is stupid or their writing is terrible, it's kind of, well, fine, they're just leaving their thing out there. It is something that you can derive a lot of comedy from, but it's also something that you feel a bit mean doing it. But with CBR, it's like, someone's been paid to do this. This is not something done out of love. This is not something done out of opinions. This is just pay somebody a few dollars to do some crap surface level research and put some words together that fans of these shows that they talk about will come and look at, and we'll get some ad revenue, or we'll get some more authority as a website. It's just, you know, it's pretty indefensible that it is so bad. But anyway, Emilia. Especially during ReZero's first season, there weren't a lot of fans who liked Emilia. I liked Emilia. But yeah, this was due to the fact that the show gave more screen time to Rem, who truly loves Subaru despite his flaws, while Emilia is more aloof. I mean, you know, that is a pretty basic way to sum up why there was kind of the fan preference towards Rem that there inarguably was. I mean, I like Emilia, but personally I was all about Rem until I actually started reading the web novel and got to the parts where Emilia gets expanded on a bit more, which the anime will reach soon but hasn't reached yet. And so I can very well see why people are waiting for that with Emilia. It's not like Emilia's a badly written character, it's just that we know we haven't been shown what the deal is with her really yet. It's kind of jarring to a lot of people that Subaru is so in love with Emilia when she doesn't respond to him in the way that Rem does, when he's surrounded by other interesting female characters who a lot of fans prefer to Emilia at the current point in the story. But the thing is, it's supposed to seem a little bit jarring that Subaru instantly falls in love with this girl who, compared to other characters in the story, maybe doesn't seem like the best choice for him. It is supposed to seem a little bit awry, a little bit. Perhaps there are supernatural reasons why he is drawn to her, and that's the kind of thing that will extend throughout the rest of the story. I'm not spoiling anything by saying this because it hasn't, this story arc hasn't reached its conclusion yet where we are in the web novel, but it is something that you get this sense that if you think it's a bit unlikely or a bit weird that Subaru falls in love basically at first sight with Emilia, it's supposed to. When we saw Subaru's trial of the past, when we saw his old bedroom back in Japan, he had all these figurines of girls with white hair that looked kind of like Emilia. It was definitely, he'd always had a thing for that particular look and character type. And it could well be that there's something in him that is drawn to Emilia for reasons we don't know about yet that will be important to the plot, and could connect to why Satella looks just like Emilia. These are all things that are supposed to be important, and I can certainly see why Tappei wanted to make us think, well, what's so special about Emilia? Why does he love her so much when Rem is clearly, much more in love with him and a lot more supportive of him, and, a much more fleshed out character? It's supposed to seem strange. But as we go further into the story, Tappei loves Emilia. She's the reason why he wanted to write the story. He came up with her before he came up with just about anything else about ReZero. And so Emilia will be shown to us, why she's interesting, why she's a good character, and why up until this point she hasn't seemed that way. And this is all stuff we'll get to see later. And so fans loving to hate Emilia is completely intentional, and something that I think people will look back on when they get later into the story, even after just the end of the second core, and see just how well done that was, just why the way that we initially felt about Emilia was kind of like we were played in a special way that really adds something to the story. I can't really argue with them putting her on this list. And here they say many fans still find it hard to like Emilia simply because she doesn't do much to help Subaru. She does play a more interesting role in the second season, but as of writing this, she hasn't made it past the first trial. Next, Ryuzu. This is where they're starting to get weird with them. I'm being really careful not to scroll down and show you who number 1 is yet, because number 1 is like one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this article, because it's just so weird. But number 2, Ryuzu. Ryuzu. People love to hate Ryuzu more than they love to hate Petelgeuse and Emilia. They love to hate her more than they love to hate Priscilla. Characters like Petelgeuse and Priscilla that you are supposed to hate from the way they're written initially, and that can be something that your opinion of them can change later on, but they're written in a way that you're supposed to really want to see them get their comeuppance, Emilia, who's intentionally quite divisive as a heroine at the start. Then you've got, characters like Elsa, who are just outright antagonists. You've got characters like Roswaal, who are shady and suspicious. You've got characters like the Sin Archbishops, Regulus and Ley, that we've literally seen just do one thing, and it was one of the worst things anybody's done in the show so far in terms of the consequences. There's all of that. But then there's Ryuzu. There's Ryuzu at number 2. Ryuzu is another character that fans have become divided on. The actual Ryuzu doesn't seem to be garnering a lot of attention, especially after having imprisoned Subaru earlier in the season. Ryuzu also hasn't had a lot of screen time. At the point when they wrote this article, it had already been established that there was more than one Ryuzu. Not in the sense that there's that clone army, but more than one sentient Ryuzu. The Ryuzu Bilma and the Ryuzu Shima and all of that. Well, yeah. The actual Ryuzu doesn't seem to be garnering a lot of attention, especially having Subaru imprisoned earlier on in the season. Well, she would be the only one of the Ryuzus that you would love to hate, because the others haven't done anything negative to Subaru. And, Ryuzu Bilma, who Subaru talked to a lot after the bit where he finds out about the clones when the Witch of Envy attacks, and then he goes to the lab where the clones emerge from to take control of them, and he has a long conversation with Ryuzu Bilma. There's nothing that would make anybody hate her in that. She's open with Subaru about what's going on. She's a nice character. She's like the granny that takes care of everyone in the sanctuary. Ryuzu Shima, who did have Subaru imprisoned for reasons we still don't really know why she did that, but they don't seem to be getting that they're different people the actual Ryuzu technically wouldn't be any of them. She'd be the girl that they're all based on. You know, that they're all clones of the girl preserved in the crystal. And she isn't any of the personalities that Subaru interacts with. There are 4 sentient ones, and then there are the clones that are not really sentient. They're kind of kamikaze lolly doll people. So I don't really know. I think they don't really understand what's happening with any of this, probably because they just read it off the wiki. Now, while Ryuzu is disliked, the other clones seem to be way more popular with the fans. Ryuzu will hopefully get more development as time goes on, since her origin is incredibly interesting and she seems to want to align with Subaru. I mean, if you know that her origin is incredibly interesting and she wants to align with Subaru, how do you not know that there's more than one sentient Ryuzu and only one of them ever did anything you might dislike her for? I think they just don't get it, but I also think, why is she number 2, even for that? It's like, why would you love to hate Ryuzu more than Roswaal or, Elsa or Petelgeuse? Ryuzu. But, if you're confused by Ryuzu being at number 2, as I am, wait till you see who's at number 1. Do you want to have a guess? I mean, characters that haven't been on the list yet that maybe people love to hate could be maybe Echidna? No, it's not Echidna. Could be Puck. A lot of people got problems with Puck. He did end the world quite a few times in season 1, and he's just sort of disappeared and isn't supporting Emilia at all in season 2. So yeah, a lot of people have some issues with Puck and his behaviour in the series, and the fact that he knows so much more than he's letting on, but hasn't really been forthcoming with answers for Subaru or Emilia. Definitely Puck could be a character people love to hate, but no, he's not even on the list, let alone at number 1. It could be, wildcard, could be Daphne. She created all those monsters that have been plaguing the world. She created the whale that caused all those problems in season 1, and she created the rabbits that are eating Subaru out from the inside in season 2. Is it Daphne? No. Is it Typhon? She had hardly any screen time, but, she did shatter Subaru into little pieces when she appeared. No, it's not Typhon. The character that CBR think characters love to hate more than those ones I just mentioned who aren't on the list, and more than the likes of Ley Batenkaitos, Roswaal, Elsa. The character we all love to hate is Frederica Baumann. Frederica, the most divisive character, or the character that's such a villain. We just love to hate her. We just love watching it to see what kind of evil, devious things she's going to do next. The Dio Brando of ReZero is Frederica Baumann. Big Fred. Nobody I've asked to kind of predict who CBR would pick as the most love to hateable character in all of ReZero, at least up to the 2nd season, has even considered that it might have been Frederica. Even when I say, what's the most unlikely character you can think of, the character that you think is so obscure and unlikely to be in it. Maybe it could be Felix or something. He's sometimes a bit snippy to Subaru. He insulted Emilia a bit, at the beginning of season 2, called her names for her half-elf status and all that. Maybe it's Felix. No, it's not Felix. Maybe it's, Ricardo. Just pick a random character and you still won't pick Frederica. It's like, what are you smoking to think Frederica is the character fans love to hate the most out of all of ReZero? I mean, especially at the point where they wrote this. If they'd written this when it was still kind of mysterious whether Frederica was involved in the attack on the mansion, before the loop where we saw her transform and fight alongside Subaru and Ram against Elsa, then I could see that at least that would be a reason why you might hate her, when she was still sus. But at this point, when this was written close to the end of the first core, it's kind of like, well, Frederica's been established to not be an enemy. She's, she can turn into an awesome beast and fight. There's no reason why you would hate her. And there's no reason why she's been so far significant enough that you'd feel strongly enough about her either way for her to be number one on basically any list, unless she's the kind of type that you like and you might put her as your favorite waifu or something. But as people who have an effect on the plot and people who you really remember when you watch ReZero, unless you have any particular reason why you really love Frederica, there's just why would she be the top of any list? Why is she even a character that comes to mind immediately when you think about making a list like this? It's just so odd and bewildering. And I just love this. I mean, this is why I felt the need to cover this article. It doesn't have any of the truly bizarre, incorrect things that the other two articles I covered did, like the bit about how the dog bite curse made Subaru fall in love with Emilia, or the bit about how Rem being in a coma is creating checkpoints. It didn't have anything quite as outlandishly wrong as those two articles. And a lot of the things they've said about the characters, aside from the general feeling you get that they don't really understand what they're talking about and the fact that they can't tell the difference between Rem and Ram, that there was nothing that outrageously strange about most of what they said or most of the characters they chose. But to have as your number 2 Ryuzu and your number 1 Frederica is just what are you thinking? Why? Of all the people you could have picked, Frederica. I'm not even mad. This is I couldn't have picked up something that random myself. If I was trying to parody this and just come up with something, I would have gone with, I don't know, the Appa guy if I was trying to be random. This is just Frederica. Frederica is essentially the replacement for Rem at the Roswaal mansion. At the start of the season, many fans came to the conclusion that she was an enemy and even more disliked her presence simply because her character is less involved than Rem's. So I guess the angle they're going with for why people hate Frederica is that she was the replacement for Rem, in the sense that, she was the maid that was hired to do Rem's work. She replaces Rem from the perspective of Roswaal keeping his mansion going. She doesn't, she was never intended to be the new Rem, the character that was going to be as important to the story as Rem, or as important to Subaru as Rem, or was going to replace Rem as a factor in the story. She replaces Rem by doing Rem's work at the mansion. That's all. And then it says, to her credit, Frederica is becoming a more interesting character as the show goes along, but she'll likely never get the love that other main characters do. Well, she's not a main character. That would probably be the reason for that. Frederica is, she's at the mansion. She's a good character from what we can tell. She's Garfield's sister. There's potential for her to be more involved in the story as things go on. But the way that things have been set up, she's not established as being, one of the main characters. She's not supposed to be part of the main group, at least for this arc. And she, doesn't get a lot of screen time as a result of that. She's just sort of introduced properly in Arc 4. She does also feature in the prequel story, The Oni Sisters of the Hidden Village, that came out with the Blu-ray discs of Season 1, and which I've been doing a series about on my channel. She does appear in that, so she was introduced in that prequel. We saw her very quickly in a flashback of Rem and Ram's backstory in Season 1, and so here she gets her proper introduction as a current person in the ReZero cast. And we see a little bit of her, but we don't, we're not expected to start to think of Frederica as a main character who is supposed to be as invested in as Rem or Emilia or Subaru or characters who are sort of brought to the forefront more in Arc 4, like Otto. She's a secondary character, and so she'll likely never get the love the other main characters do unless she is brought into the forefront more as a main character, which it's possible might happen in Arc 7. I believe she is going to be in Arc 7 from what we've heard about Arc 7 from Tappei. But in Arc 4, for the anime onlys, she's a secondary character who works at the mansion. She's really no more a main character than Petra. I'm surprised, you know what, I would have put Petra at number 1 on this list. I love to hate Petra, she really annoys me. But that's just me. Petra, not on the list. Frederica, number 1. She's also the sister of Garfiel, and there seems to be some major strain on the relationship of the two siblings. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be something that comes up in the plot. And another reason why Frederica is in this arc. But, yeah, it's not a reason why people love to hate her. The fact that she's Garfield's sister. I mean, maybe if you really hate Garfield, you might just hate her because she's related to him. But he was only number 10 on the list, and she's number 1. It's like Frederica's the big bad. She's like the mastermind of everything. Except she's not. She's a nice maid who can turn into a cat, and she's, she helps Petra learn how to be a maid. And so anyway, yeah, I find this list incredibly weird. More for the characters that are on it and the order of them than from really what they say about them. It's typical CBR bewilderment that I'm feeling coming away from this article. I don't know about you guys. Let me know in the comments what you think about this article, and why not let me know the characters you love to hate, whether they were mentioned on this list or not. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again very soon.